Now we're going to do block 3. Block 3 is our buttonholes, and to do that I need 2 different colours. So I'm going to go with this colour. I'm going to go with the hot pink as well. Okay, so I'm going to match these together. This patterned colour and plain colour. Often best to go patterned and plain, or do the same colour for your 2 panels. So you're welcome to do 2 the same. I need to make this straight, so I'm just going to line up these straight edges here with this straight edge. Okay, and then I'm going to line my ruler up. Just make sure I'm on the 2 there, and I'm going to cut this piece just here. Grab my rotary cutter. I'm just going to move it over a tiny bit more so that I get a nice straight cut. So we're going to put our hand down and we're going to run down the edge there like that. Okay, so now I have my straight edge. This piece needs to be 10 inches by 5.5 inches. So I'm going to bring that here. Now this piece here isn't straight either, so I'm going to straighten that edge up. Just going to pull it back a tiny bit so I can see the edge there. I'm just going to line up there. Just cut off that tiny little piece so that's nice and straight. There we go. So now we have our right angle. Okay, so this is our right angle, and that's where I'm going to do my 10 inches. There is 10 inches. There's 10 inches. And there's, that's half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to go from the 1 to the 6, because that will be 5.5 inches. Okay, we make sure we've got that done. Let's go just a little bit over. And then we're going to slide the ruler down to the 5.5 inches. And then we're going to cut the 10 inches. You can see that that's 10 inches. And so we're going to cut this 10 inches along here. So now we have a piece that's 5.5 inches by 10 inches. Perfect. And we can now use this piece to cut out the next colour. So you don't need to use and do as much measuring the second time round. So we're going to place this piece. Remember, we're always going to place it on the edge so that we're not wasting fabric. Okay, so we try and line it up with that right angle there. Just get your excess out of the way. Make it nice and straight, so put it on this straight line there. And we're just going to use our ruler, and we're going to cut this little piece off at the bottom first. Okay, so that piece off. And then we can just lay our ruler on here. It doesn't really matter which way up you put the ruler, just make sure it's even. And we're going to cut this bit off. 5.5, there it is. Boy, I'm going to cut the top bit. Okay, 2 pieces, exactly the same size. Okay, those are our 2 pieces. Next, we have to cut interfacing. But on the top part of your, where you're going to put your buttons and your buttonholes, we're going to put a piece of this interfacing again. We're going to stiffen it up, and we use this for our applique. So this is block 3 buttonholes, and we're going to use applique. We're going to use the same stuff as the applique. I'm going to just tidy up this edge here. So we're going to bring it over so it's on the lines, and the good thing is you can see through this fabric, so lining it up makes life really easy. And we're just going to line that up and cut that off. So we've got a nice straight edge. Okay, now we just want 2 inches by 10 inches. So this is 1, 2 by 10, and we're going to cut that out. 1, 2, and we need 2 pieces. So we're going to do it again. You could fold it over. Oops, I just gave that a rip. That doesn't matter. We'll iron that in place later. It doesn't matter that that's a little bit ripped because it's going to be ironed on. So we're just going keeping your fingers out of the way. There we go. I cut off that little bit of mess. So we've got 2 pieces. Now remember, we're going to use the shiny side and we're going to iron it onto our 2 pieces of fabric. We're going to do that over at the ironing board. We have our 2 pieces of fabric that we are going to use for our buttonholes, and we have our 2 pieces of interfacing. Now can you see the shiny painting? Remember, the shiny side is going to go down on the wrong side of the fabric this side. See that? That's the right side. This is the wrong side. So this is where the pattern is not as pretty. And on this one, there's more of a weave on this side and less of a weave on this side. This is the wrong side of the fabric, and we're going to turn that over and place it down. Now, sometimes interfacing can be a bit fussy, so I'm actually going to flip it over and we're going to iron this side. So we'll do that for both of them. That way we're not going to melt the interfacing. Okay, so we're just going to iron on top of both of these pieces. That. Nice and firm. This one changes the colour a bit when it gets hot. It goes a dark pink. Just until you've got both of those pieces nicely stuck down. So see, they're both nicely stuck on there. Okay. Right, our next step for this is also to be done the sewing at the ironing board. So what we need to do is we need to turn the edge over about 1 centimetre or just under 1 centimetre. I would go with like 1 centimetre. So here's our tape measure. Okay, there's 1 centimetre, and we're just going to roll it down to 1 centimetre. So the whole way along is 1 centimetre, and you can just bring over your iron and press, and then check again. Okay, we'll make it 1 centimetre. So you need it to be the same all the way along. It's really important. Really important that it's the same. There we go. There's our 1 centimetre all the way along. So just check that you've got that 1 centimetre measure all the way. Yes. Now I'm just going to come over and I'm going to touch it to the edge of my interfacing, and I'm going to iron that again. If you use the steam part, you'll get it to sit a bit nicer. You see how we've got the double fold, and now I'm going to pin that section there. And so when you're pinning, you pin right where you want to sew. And we're going to sew right here. So we're going to pin. It's a bit of a wonky pin. I'm going to try and get rid of the wonky pins. We're going to put it, pin goes in and pin comes out. Okay? So you're going to pin along that edge. So you need to do the same to this piece, and then we're going to sew it. Now we have our 2 pieces folded over. Can you see that they are the same size? You want your 2 areas where you're going to put your buttons and buttonholes to be the same size. We are going to sew these pieces along this edge here and along this top edge here. Straight stitch. Don't forget to reverse at the start and the finish. Right, so we've got our buttonhole piece 1. We're going to sew this edge closed. So we've got our pins in, my pin cushion sitting off to the side here. So as I get close to the pin, I can take the pin out and pop it easily in my pin cushion. I've also got my snips sitting just in front of my machine so that they're also easy to access. We're going to put our needle in and we're going to do number 1 stitch. So we're going to go forward and then we're going to reverse. 3 stitches, and then we're going to go all the way to the end of this row. Now I'm keeping it lined up with the edge of this foot, just in there. So this fold is kind of hitting the edge of that foot as I sew. I'll take the pin out and keep going. Take the pin out. You do not want to sew a pin. It is a horrible noise and it makes a mess because we have to change a needle. And then we reverse at the end, pressing the button 1, 2, 3, and then going to the end. Alright, so lift our needle, lift our foot, pull out our fabric, and cut. Push your cotton, always push your cotton back through the middle. So we've got our first line of stitching. We're also going to do a line of stitching along this very top edge as well. This will just keep it nice and strong, stop the buttonholes and buttons from ripping, and it just keeps the edge nice and even and flat. So this time we're going to line up with that little notch in our foot. We're just going to slowly go down. Take your time. I'm going quickly. You don't have to. Reverse. Put up. And cut. Make sure you cut your little threads. Off. And push your threads through. Right, that's that one done. We're going to do this one as well. Right, so now we have the two pieces done. So this is the correct side, and you have to decide whether or not you want your buttonholes to be on this piece or that piece, which way you want them to overlap. But one side's going to be buttons and one side's going to be buttonholes. So our next step is that we have to position these buttons. Okay, so I found my middle, okay, of our piece, and we need to figure out where each of the buttons. So I've decided I'm using these little pink buttons because they match really nicely with this fabric. So I'm going to use these three. You only need 3 buttons, 3 little buttons, and I'm going to position them. Now you do actually need to measure the buttons to be even distance apart. Okay, so we're going to have one button here, and when you have positioned your button, now this one's nice and easy because that's going to be right in the middle there. And you're going to get some chalk or a lead pencil, and you draw a little line either side of the button, like that, just like that. And then you take the button off and you draw a line down the middle. So you've got this little upside down T, and that is where you're going to stitch your buttonhole. And so you need to match that with these 2 buttons here. So you're going to measure that is 12 centimeters. So I'm going to go 6 centimeters. So about here, so 12, about there. That's 6 centimeters. So I'm just going to do a dot. And from this center, I'm going to measure here again, and I'm going to do a dot at 6 centimeters. Now I can put my button on top of that dot, and I'm going to draw my little lines either side, like that, and I'm going to join the 2 together like that. So I put my other button down here, right on top of that dot. I'll do a little line, a little line, and join. So you want to go right through the center. You want to go right through this centerpiece. Okay, so you need your buttonhole to be right in the middle. So that is 1.5 centimeters. So yeah, I'm about right in that center, in the center of that strip. So this is where we are putting our buttons, and I'll show you buttonholes, and I'll show you how to do that on the machine. So to do a buttonhole, we need to change the foot. This is the A foot, this is the buttonhole foot. We need to take off our J foot, and remember, when we take our J foot off, place it in the front here. This is our buttonhole foot. We attach it to the shaft here, there, and this part here is to measure your button. So your button needs to go in the back here, in that little section, and push it closed so it's nice and tight, and your little button is sitting neat and snug inside that little gap. Because this measurement here is how the machine is going to know how big your button is. So we're going to place this on our machine, but first we're going to thread our cotton through this hole here first. So just pull that through, hold on to it, and then you just take this back and you pop it onto the machine. You want to have the cotton through the center hole of the sewing machine. Now that you've got that on, we're going to go over and have a quick look at the different buttonholes. Now you have some options with your buttonholes. These are the buttonholes here, from 37 to 42. Now 42 is more of a darning stitch. It's like a buttonhole, but it doesn't have a gap, so you don't want to use that one. You want to use 37 to 41, and I like these straight side ones, 38 or 40. I'm not a particular fan of these ones with a round, so I'm actually going to use 38 because I like the lines that it gives, not the crisscross. Okay, so I'll just zoom in and show you. See, so this one's kind of got a crisscross pattern, and this one's got nice lines. So I'm going to use those ones. So we're going to select 38 on our selector, and that tells me that I need the A foot. So I've already put my A foot on, and we're ready to come back over here. What we need to do is we need to start at the bottom. So the machine starts at the bottom of the buttonhole and it goes backwards, and then it comes back down again. So it goes up and around and down. So you need to place the bottom of your buttonhole line inside that little gap there. And we're going to put our, last but not least, we're going to bring this little grey part down so that and it has to be behind this first stalk. What will happen is this will come forward and it will go back and it will hit this back stalk, and that will tell the machine that it's long enough, that the buttonhole is long enough, and then it will come back and it'll do the other side of the buttonhole. So we put our needle in and sew. Doing the side bit, it's coming back down, it's coming back up and doing the side bit, and it does the end. And it does a locking stitch for you, and then you can press up, and you can lift it up, and see, you have this most perfect buttonhole all done for you. Now I just need to do 2 more. So just trim all those little bits off because they look messy. I don't like messy little bits. There we go. And we're going to do our next buttonhole. So I'll do it one more time for you. I don't need this pin anymore. I'll take that out. I'm going to line up the bottom of the buttonhole with those 3 red lines inside the hole. Put our needle, and the needle should go in on the far side of this first line here. So go in right there and go. And it just does it automatically for you. You don't need to do much with your fingers, just let the machine do the work. Needle up, take it out, and you have a buttonhole. Right, what we have to do now is we have to rip these seams. So we have to rip this buttonhole. We have to actually rip the fabric in this here. You need to use a buttonhole ripper or a seam ripper or a quick unpick. These are all the names that this little contraption has. I do believe it's probably my most hated contraption in all of my sewing equipment, but it is also one of the most useful because it does make repairing a mistake so much faster. So inside there is quite sharp, and it is what's going to cut your fabric. So you need to insert your seam ripper to the end. Do your very best. Do not cut through the stitching. You need to cut through. So hopefully you've got a nice, strong, sharp seam ripper. Don't go too hard. Like, be really controlled. Push slowly and push away from yourself. Do not try and do this towards yourself. So you make sure you do not cut through the end part. You can come around and make sure you've got all of it. So if you need to go back this way, there you go. You've got your hole that your button can now pass through. And because it measured the size of your button, that should pass through reasonably easy. Okay? Need to do that with all 3 buttonholes. So I have ripped open all 3 of my buttonholes. You need to overlap your bottom piece, the piece that you're going to put your buttons, over the top so that you're matching up the stitching. And you're going to just get your chalk or your lead pencil and put it through, and right in the center of your buttonhole, you're going to make a mark on the fabric underneath. So you need to just pop it through the fabric and make a mark so that you're right in the center. Oop, that one didn't mark. And come back, pull it through and make a mark. So you want to go right in the middle of that piece. That is where your button is going to go. So when you overlap them and do them up, they will work. Now we have to sew our buttons on. So we need a needle, we need some thread. I usually make it up to my nose. Okay, so from the end to my nose. I can wet it and I need to thread it through that hole. Now, that's probably the hard way to do it. I do have some of these needle threaders. You see that? Put it there. It's got, even if I put it against the sewing machine, you can see it's got like a piece of wire sticking out the front of it. If you pop that piece of wire through the eye of your needle, squish it in there, you can then put your piece of thread into the wire on that side and you can pull it through and it threads the needle for you, just like your sewing machine does. You need to take that all the way to the bottom so the two ends match. Now you just need to tie a knot in this, so you can just tie a knot like that. So you've got a little knot in the bottom of your thread. Okay, it doesn't need to be a big knot. And we're going to just move those aside. We're going to get our thread. So there's our hole. That's where we're going to go. So we're going to come up from underneath. So the wrong side of the fabric. We're going to come up from underneath, right in the middle there. And we're going to bring it all the way through on the side there. And we've brought it through where I have drawn that mark. And I'm going to put my through the center here like this, so that we've got it through the corner. Okay, so it's coming out, and I'm going to go diagonal. I'm going to go this way first. After about 5 times, I'm going to go back the other way. So we're going to go in this other corner, and we're going to pull it all the way through. Now you always go up from the bottom and down from the top. Don't get them confused. Up from the bottom, down from the top. So you're going to come up from the bottom, come in the same hole that you started with. Come up, pull nice and tight so it's flat on the back. And then go down from the top. You're going to do this about 5 times. Up from the bottom, down from the top. One more time, the bottom, and down from the top. Okay, pulling it through. Now I've got that done 5, so I'm going to do for the top one on this side now. You can actually just bring it through and then poke it through the hole. There we go. So up from the bottom, and we're going to do this one 5 times. 1, 2, should have used a bigger button. 3, 4. That'll do. I think that is plenty. That's 4. Now we're going to create a shank. So we're going to come up through here, and we pull it out between the button and the fabric, and we're just going to go with our fabric round and round. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that creates a shank that will just make it easier to do your button up. So we're going to push back down. So we're going to go back down into the bottom. Nope, through the bottom. To the bottom, underneath. Go down through here. So it comes out the bottom, nice and tight. And we're going to go through the stitching we've just done. And we're going to make a loop. And we're going to thread our needle through the loop and pull tight undo the same a second time, put the needle through and pull tight. And there we go, that button will never come off. That is a button that is destined to always be attached to your fabric, and you need to do the other two exactly the same. Now we have our 3 buttons attached. Please do your best that when you do attach your buttons that you've got all of your holes kind of facing in the right direction. Don't have them on a diagonal, one on a diagonal, one flat, one, yeah. So make sure that your holes, if you have a 2-hole a button like one of these, then make sure that you either go that way or that way. You don't have one of your buttons that way and one of your buttons that way. Okay, so that your 2 holes, maybe if I show you this one, 2 holes that way or 2 holes that way. Choose a way to go. Also choose a button that doesn't overlap. So you need to make sure your button sits within this channel here, okay? And now we can just overlap these, and our buttons, they're going to go through to the other side. Here we go. Button through the hole, out the other side. There we go. Button done up. And I'll show you what it looks like when they're all done up. The final product, you'll have a nice, flat, straight product where you have the same. Now it always looks like there's more of this fabric than this because we've got an overlap here, but that is what your final product would look like with your 3 buttons done up. You don't need more than 3 buttons. You could do more if you wanted to, but you're going to be wasting your time with all that extra effort. So 3 buttons. They don't all have to be the same like mine. You can mix and match, that's not a problem. But make sure that you clean up any of the little threads. You see how I've got little threads here? You just give them a snip so that it's nice and neat and tidy.